All right, continuing our notes on plants here with plant reproduction today. Okay, so we're going to talk about how plants make baby plants. It's an interesting process, and it's probably one that you're familiar with a lot of parts to it, but maybe don't fully understand maybe how it works. We're going to focus on flowering plants here, so the angiosperms today. And we're going to spend a lot of time. Let me move my face here so you can see maybe a little better. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about this diagram here and the parts that are on it. Okay. There are plants that have been around for a long time, so a lot of these parts maybe have more than one name as the years have gone by. These are the names that I'll use. Okay, this is from a textbook I'm familiar with, and these would be parts of the flower. Now, maybe you're unaware, but flowers on plants are how they reproduce. So when you go through the field and you see, the different prairie plants blooming, these are the ways that plants are trying to make offspring. Okay, it could be trees, could be, like I said, prairie plants, bushes, shrubs, whatever. But this is how they're trying to reproduce. So you have over on the left, you have the carpel. Okay, also sometimes called the pistil, and that is the female reproductive organs of a plant, and particularly of a flower. Okay, so these are the female parts up here, the carpel. The stigma is the very top of it, and it's kind of this sticky, almost like a little trap that is hopefully going to stick pollen to it. That's its goal. It is followed by this long tube called the style. And then down in here, we have the ovary that has these ovules in there. Okay, so that's the female portion of the flower. Now, in a perfect world, the pollen would land here. It would develop what's called a pollen tube and would deliver the sperm into the ovule and fertilize that. Then the ovary becomes the fruit of the plant. All right, so when you're eating an apple, that's actually the ovary of that apple tree that has been fertilized and has developed into a fruit in order to help disperse the seeds. And those ovules that are inside there are then become the seeds. Okay, so that's kind of a little bit later on in the plant reproduction stages. We don't quite get to that part as much. If you take more advanced botany classes, you do. But just knowing that that's what happens. Then the male portion of the plant is over here. Collectively, it's called the stamen. And there's only two parts to the males. They have an anther, which is at the top. It's kind of this fuzzy little, I always think of it like Q-tip head. And that's what produces the pollen. Okay, so that's where the pollen is going to be. And then we have this long, skinny filament that essentially gets it up in the air. We should be familiar that bees are a big pollinator. There are other organisms that do the same job, but think about bees. We need to get pollen onto the coat of the bee to take it to a different flower for us. So that's their goal in getting those up in the air, is that they can move across. So that's the male portion. And then a couple other parts here, the petals of the flower, we're familiar with those. Once again, they're brightly colored to attract pollinators. They want bees to come in to help spread their pollen. So it's not just brightly colored just to be brightly colored. They're trying to attract insects to them. That's also why flowers smell good, is they want to attract pollinators. And then we have a sepal. That's kind of the support leaves underneath of the flower there. Okay, so a lot of terms there on plant reproduction. A few more notes here afterwards. This is kind of what this is kind of what I talked about, but just in writing now, is that pollen is produced by the stamen, which is carried by wind or pollinators to the stigma of another flower. I should back up. A lot of plants are hermaphroditic, meaning that they have both male and female parts per flower. Some aren't. Some plants, I know, like oak trees, have male oak trees and female oak trees and whatnot, but most have both parts. But ideally, they want to cross-pollinate. Okay, inbreeding is bad in the not just the animal kingdom, but also the plant kingdom. they'd prefer to be pollinated by other members of their species. That helps keep genetic diversity up. Once those ovules are fertilized, they develop into the seeds and the ovary becomes the fruit. We're aware of that. There's another look at some of these developed parts coming in there. So pollen is the male reproductive cell, so to speak, okay-ish, because the sperm cells are inside there. During the spring, that's when a lot of the plant species are reproducing. And so that is just plant sperm in the air that is being carried by the wind, being carried by organisms to other plants to fertilize them, to produce seeds, etc. Sometimes your body has an adverse reaction to that. Sometimes you attack that pollen in the air you breathe. We call that allergies. Pollen's actually not bad for you at all. It's your body's that, confused and wants to attack it. That's what's causing problems there. Some plants also have the ability to reproduce asexually. Okay, so there is no male, female reproductive organs. It is just, they just make copies of themselves, possibly. Okay, so strawberries are capable of doing that. They can kind of make clones of themselves. They'll shoot out a runner. It'll embed, grow roots. Another strawberry plant will grow from that exact same genetic match as the other one. And potatoes can do the same thing. All right. Take a potato and plant it. You can grow another potato plant. See that in the movie The Martian. And then I think, yeah, okay, last slide here. From there, lots of things happen, but our abbreviated sophomore biology version is eventually the goal is those seeds to get buried of some sort. Now, in nature, they don't get buried very deep, but just a little protective layer over them. Oftentimes, fruits are tasty, so that animals will consume that fruit, carry those seeds a distance, and then go to the bathroom, and those seeds will be in a nice little pocket of fertilizer to help it get a good start. But anyway, those seeds will lie dormant until the right conditions cause it to germinate or start to grow. Usually it's moisture and temperature. So once the seed itself becomes damp and warm, it'll start to germinate. And actually that means start to grow. They don't do this right away. That's why you can save seeds for, there's seeds on record that are hundreds, if not thousands of years old that will readily germinate once the right conditions are available there. And lastly here, just a couple more terms that you maybe have heard about plants. We have a variety of plants out there. You have perennials that live several years. They reproduce many times. Trees are perennials where they have long lifespans. They produce tons of plants. And then you have annuals. These are plants that live and die just in one life cycle. So they'll grow, they'll flower, they'll make seeds, they'll lay their seeds down, and then that individual will die. They will not come back for another year there. And then there's also some strange ones called biennials that'll take 2 seasons to reproduce there. So just a little bit about plant reproduction today.